The morning sun rose over New Haven Colony like any other day. Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the main building, drinking his coffee and watching the miners head out to the dig sites. 300 people called this place home, now. They had built something good here on Kepler 442b. The planet was perfect for humans. Clean air, fresh water, and rich mineral deposits that made the long journey from Earth worth every credit spent. Jake had been the colony administrator for 5 years now. He knew every face, every family, every story of how they came to be here. Dr. Kevin Chen was already at the medical center preparing for the day shift. His wife Amy worked in the engineering section, keeping all their machines running smooth. Their 7-year-old son Tommy was probably still asleep, dreaming of the adventures he would have when he got older. Lisa Hayes finished her morning patrol around the perimeter. As security chief, she took her job seriously. The planet seemed safe, but space was full of surprises. Her team of 12 guards kept watch day and night. So far, the biggest threats they had faced were equipment failures and the occasional dispute between colonists. The ground shook. Jake spilled his coffee as the building swayed. Through the large windows, he saw dust clouds rising from the eastern hills. The seismic sensors started beeping warnings on his desk. This was not a normal earthquake. All stations report. Lisa's voice came over the communication system. Did anyone else feel that? Reports came in from across the colony. The tremor had been felt everywhere, but no damage was visible. The mining teams in the eastern sector reported that some of their equipment had been knocked over, but they were fine. Then Pete Jackson's voice crackled through the radio. He was the head of the mining operation, a tough man who had worked dangerous jobs on 6 different worlds. Base, we have a problem out here, a big problem. Jake grabbed his communicator. What kind of problem, Pete? The kind that just came out of the ground and ate our drilling rig. The silence that followed was broken by another tremor, stronger than the first. This time Jake could see rocks falling from the eastern hills. Something large was moving out there. Lisa was already suiting up when Jake reached the security station. Her team was loading weapons and checking their armor. Through the reinforced windows, they could see a dust cloud moving toward the colony. What are we dealing with? Jake asked. Don't know yet, Lisa replied, checking her plasma rifle. But it's big and it's heading this way. Dr. Chen arrived at the security station looking worried. Amy is securing the engineering section. Where should we take Tommy? Central Habitat Dome, Jake decided. It has the strongest walls and the best protection. Get all non-essential personnel there now. The communicator buzzed with Pete's voice again, but this time he sounded terrified. Base, you need to see this. I'm sending video feed. The main screen flickered to life, showing the view from Pete's helmet camera. What they saw made everyone in the room go silent. The creature was 12 feet tall and covered in dark, shiny armor that looked like it could stop any weapon they had. It moved on 6 legs, each ending in claws as long as a man's arm. Multiple eyes covered its head, turning in different directions as it searched for targets. Dear God, Dr. Chen whispered. What is that thing? Lisa was already checking her database of known alien species. Her face went pale as she found a match. It's a Vorthak. They're called Warbeasts in the Galactic records. Jake felt his blood turn cold. He had heard stories about Vorthaks during his military service. They were living weapons, creatures that could destroy entire fleets single-handed. No one had ever successfully fought one and lived to tell about it. How did it get here? Doctor, Chen asked. The caves. Amy Chen's voice came over the communicator. She had joined them from the engineering station. The seismic activity must have opened up deeper cave systems. This planet has underground networks we never knew about. On the screen, they watched Pete trying to stay hidden behind a boulder, while the creature examined the destroyed drilling equipment. It was clearly intelligent, studying the human technology with what looked like curiosity. Then it turned toward the camera. Pete's scream cut through the radio as the creature moved, faster than anything that size should be able to move. The video feed went dead. All teams fall back to the colony immediately, Lisa ordered. Activate emergency protocols. Everyone to the central dome now. The next hour was chaos. Colonists ran through the streets, grabbing what they could carry. Parents called for their children. The elderly were helped along by younger colonists. Jake coordinated the evacuation, while Lisa's security team tried to set up defensive positions. The creature appeared at the colony's edge just as the last stragglers reached the central dome. It moved with terrifying purpose, destroying the communication array with one swipe of its massive claws. The landing pad where their ships were parked was its next target. It's cutting off our escape routes, Lisa realized. This thing is smart. They tried everything they had. Plasma rifles barely scratched its armor. The sonic disruptors did nothing. Even the particle cannon they had salvaged from an old alien ship couldn't penetrate its natural defenses. The creature seemed to enjoy the challenge. It would let the security team take their shots, then casually destroy whatever building or equipment it chose. It was playing with them, showing them how helpless they were. Tommy Chen pressed his face against the reinforced windows of the central dome, watching the monster move through their colony, while the adults panicked and argued about what to do next. The 7-year-old boy studied the creature with the careful attention only children could manage. There was something about the way it moved that reminded him of the stray dog he had found back on Earth. It looked dangerous but also sad, like it was lost and didn't know how to ask for help. Outside, the Vorthak circled their shelter, its multiple eyes reflecting the setting sun. Inside, 300 terrified humans waited to see what morning would bring, if they lived to see it at all. The night passed slowly inside the central dome. Most of the colonists could not sleep. They listened to the sounds outside, heavy footsteps, the scraping of claws on metal, and sometimes a low rumbling that seemed to come from deep in the creatures. Tommy Chen sat by the window while his parents tried to rest. He had been watching the Vorthak for hours now. The other children were scared and crying, but Tommy felt something different. The creature reminded him of something, though. He could not figure out what. Jake Morrison gathered his senior staff in the morning. The situation looked hopeless. The creature had destroyed their communication equipment, damaged their ships, and blocked all the roads leading away from the colony. They were trapped. "We could try to make a run for the backup communication station," suggested Carl Wright, their communications officer. "It's only 2 miles north." Lisa Hayes shook her head. "That thing would catch us before we made it halfway. Did you see how fast it moved yesterday?" Dr. Chen looked tired. He had been treating people for shock and panic attacks all night. "What about the emergency beacon? Can we activate it manually?" "The beacon transmitter is on the roof of the main building," Amy Chen explained. "Someone would have to get past that creature and climb 5 stories while it hunted them." They discussed options, but every plan seemed impossible. The Vorthak was too fast, too strong, and too smart. It had positioned itself where it could watch all the buildings at once. Tommy listened to the adults talk, but he kept looking out the window. The creature was sitting now, resting in the morning sun. It had not tried to break into the dome, even though Tommy was sure it could if it wanted to. "Why doesn't it just come in here?" Tommy asked. The adults stopped talking and looked at him. Jake knelt down beside the boy. "What do you mean, Tommy?" "The walls aren't that strong. If it wanted to hurt us, it could break them easy. But it's just sitting out there." Lisa frowned. "Maybe it's waiting for something, or playing with us." But Tommy shook his head. "I don't think so. I think it's confused." Dr. Chen put his hand on his son's shoulder. "Confused about what?" Tommy pressed, his nose against the window glass. "Yesterday, when it broke the communication thing, it was really careful not to step on the playground, and when it knocked down the water building, it walked around the garden where we grow vegetables." Amy Chen looked surprised. "How do you know that?" "I was watching. It doesn't want to hurt the things we made together, only the big machines and the metal buildings." The adults exchanged glances. Could a 7-year-old boy see something they had missed? Carl Wright pulled up the security camera recordings on his tablet. He fast-forwarded through the footage from the previous day. Tommy was right. The creature had been careful to avoid certain areas. "Look at this," Carl said, pointing to the screen. "When it destroyed the generator building, it stopped and moved that sculpture Mrs. Patterson made. It put it carefully to the side before continuing." Lisa studied the footage. That's impossible. These things are supposed to be mindless killing machines. Maybe the stories are wrong, Dr. Chen suggested. Maybe we don't understand them as well as we think we do. Tommy tugged on his father's sleeve. Dad, can I go outside? Everyone in the room turned to stare at him. Amy Chen looked horrified. Absolutely not, Tommy. That thing is dangerous. But what if it's not trying to be dangerous? What if it's just scared? Jake knelt down again. Tommy, that creature has destroyed entire space fleets. It's not like the animals back on Earth. Tommy thought about this. His grandfather had been a veterinarian before he died. He had taught Tommy that all animals, even the scary ones, were just trying to survive and find their place in the world. Grandpa always said that mean animals are usually just scared animals, Tommy said quietly. Maybe space animals are the same way. Before anyone could stop him, Tommy walked toward the dome's exit. Lisa jumped up to grab him, but Dr. Chen caught her arm. Wait, he said. Let's think about this. You can't be serious, Amy protested. He's just a child. A child who noticed things we missed, Dr. Chen pointed out. Tommy, what exactly do you want to do out there? Tommy looked at his parents with serious eyes. I want to talk to it, like Grandpa taught me to talk to scared dogs. The room erupted in arguments. Lisa insisted it was suicide. Amy begged her husband not to let their son leave the safety of the dome. Carl suggested they try to contact the Galactic Council first, but Jake was thinking. Nothing they had tried had worked. Every weapon had failed. Every military strategy had been useless. Maybe they needed a completely different approach. What if he's right? Jake said finally. What if we've been thinking about this all wrong? Lisa stared at him. You want to send a child out there to talk to a Vorthak? I want to try something that might actually work, Jake replied. Everything else has failed. Tommy walked to the equipment locker and pulled out his small backpack. Inside was the wooden toy dog his grandfather had carved for him before he died. It was his most precious possession. I won't go far, Tommy promised. If it tries to hurt me, I'll run back. Dr. Chen looked at his wife. Amy was crying, but she was also thinking. Their son had always been special with animals. Back on Earth, he could calm the most aggressive dogs just by talking to them gently. If we let you do this, Dr. Chen said slowly, you have to promise to be very careful. And if we tell you to come back, you come back immediately. Tommy nodded, solemnly. I promise. Lisa grabbed her rifle. I'm going with him. No, Tommy said firmly. It's scared of the weapons. I have to go alone. As Tommy walked toward the exit, the entire colony watched through the windows. Some people prayed, others cried. Everyone held their breath as the 7-year-old boy stepped outside to face the most dangerous creature in the known galaxy. The Yo. Vorthak's multiple eyes immediately focused on him. Its massive body shifted into a hunting position. But Tommy did not run. Instead, he sat down in the dust and waited to see what would happen next. Tommy sat in the red dust outside the dome, his legs crossed like he was at story time back on Earth. The Vorthak moved toward him with the same deadly grace it had shown when hunting the security teams. Its claws extended, scraping against the ground. Every muscle in its massive body was ready to strike. Inside the dome, Amy Chen pressed her hands against the reinforced glass. She wanted to scream for her son to run, but she forced herself to stay quiet. Lisa Hayes had her rifle ready, knowing it would be useless but unable to put it down. The creature stopped 10 feet away from Tommy. Its multiple eyes studied the small human with the intensity of a predator deciding how to kill its prey. Tommy could see his reflection in those alien eyes, a tiny figure sitting alone in the vast red landscape. You're hurt, Tommy said quietly. The simple words seemed to hit the Vorthak like a physical blow. Its aggressive posture wavered for just a moment. Tommy had noticed what fear and adrenaline had hidden from all the adults. There were scratch marks on the creature's armor plating. Its left rear leg favored the right when it walked. Most importantly, there was something in its eyes that looked familiar. You're not supposed to be up here, are you? Tommy continued, pulling his wooden dog from his backpack. You're scared too. Dr. Chen leaned forward against the window. Through the directional microphones, he could hear every word his son spoke. The boy was talking to 12 feet of armored death like it was a lost puppy. Tommy held up the wooden toy. My grandpa made this for me before he died. He used to help animals when they were sick or scared. He taught me that mean animals are usually just hurt animals. The Vorthak lowered its massive head closer to the ground. Its claws retracted, slightly. For the first time since emerging from the caves, it was not in an attack position. I bet you miss your family, Tommy said. I miss my grandpa. He would know what to do right now. Inside the dome, people were gathering around the windows. Word had spread through the shelter that the Chen boy was outside talking to the monster. Some thought he was crazy. Others thought he was the bravest person they had ever seen. Carl Wright was recording everything on his emergency equipment. If Tommy survived this, the recording would be the first peaceful contact between humans and a Vorthak in galactic history. If he did not survive, at least they would have a record of his courage. Tommy scooted a little closer to the creature. You're really big, he observed, but I bet you feel really small inside, don't you? The Vorthak made a sound that was unlike anything the colonists had heard before. It was not the aggressive roar they expected. It was softer, almost like a whimper. The sound that any young animal might make when it was lost and afraid. I know. That feeling, Tommy said gently. When we first came here from Earth, I was scared too. Everything was different. The sky was a different color. The air smelled funny. I didn't know if we would be safe. Amy Chen was crying now, but she was also amazed. Her 7-year-old son was doing something that trained xenobiologists said was impossible. He was having a conversation with an alien species that had never shown interest in communication before. Tommy stood up slowly, keeping his movements calm and steady. Down, he whispered, the way his grandfather had taught him to calm frightened dogs. The word seemed to carry special power. The massive Vorthak, the creature that had terrified 300 colonists and destroyed their most powerful weapons, slowly lowered itself to the ground. Its great armored head came to rest just a few feet from where Tommy stood. Lisa Hayes had her rifle trained on the creature, waiting for any sign of aggression. But Jake Morrison put his hand on her weapon and gently pushed it down. Something incredible was happening, and they needed to let it continue. There, Tommy said softly, reaching out to touch the creature's armored snout. That's better, isn't it? The Vorthak's eyes closed as the small human hand made contact. It was the first gentle touch the creature had felt since being separated from its pack. In that moment, both species learned something important about the universe. Dr. Chen was taking medical readings through the dome's sensors. The creature's biorhythms were changing. Its stress indicators were dropping. Its aggressive pheromone production was decreasing. Whatever Tommy was doing, it was working. You're not really a monster, are you? Tommy asked. You're just a kid like me, but bigger. And you got lost. The Vorthak opened its eyes and looked directly at Tommy. For a moment, human and alien simply stared at each other. Two young beings far from where they belonged, finding comfort in an unexpected friendship. Tommy sat down next to the creature's massive head. Want to hear about Earth? That's where I'm really from. It has blue skies and green grass and lots of water. My grandpa had a farm there with cows and horses and dogs. As Tommy talked, more colonists gathered at the windows. Children pressed their faces against the glass, watching in wonder as the boy who sat next to them at lunch every day calmly befriended the most dangerous creature in known space. The dogs were my favorite, Tommy continued. They were loyal and brave, but they could be gentle too. Just like you, I think. The Vorthak made another soft sound. This time it almost sounded like purring. Tommy smiled and kept talking, telling stories about Earth and his grandfather and all the animals he had known. Inside the dome, Dr. Chen was beginning to understand what was happening. The creature was not an adult Vorthak at all. The size, the behavior patterns, the emotional responses, it was a juvenile. A child of its species separated from its family and acting on pure survival instinct. Amy, he whispered to his wife, I don't think we're dealing with a monster. I think we're dealing with a scared kid who's a lot bigger than our scared kid." Amy looked at her husband, then back at her son sitting peacefully beside the alien creature. Tommy was humming now, a lullaby their grandmother used to sing. The Vorthax seemed to be listening, its massive body relaxed for the first time since anyone had seen it. But their peaceful moment was about to be interrupted. Deep underground, seismic sensors were detecting new movement. Adult Vorthax were rising from the deeper caves, drawn by their offspring's distress calls that had been echoing through the cavern systems for days. And adult Vorthax were twice the size of the juvenile resting beside Tommy Chen. Tommy was telling the young Vorthax about his grandfather's farm when the ground began to shake again. This time the tremors were different, deeper, more rhythmic, like giant footsteps approaching from far underground. The juvenile Vorthax head snapped up, its multiple eyes scanning the horizon. It made a series of low rumbling sounds that seemed to come from deep in its chest. Tommy could feel the vibrations through the ground where he sat. "What's wrong?" Tommy asked, placing his small hand on the creature's armored snout. "Are you hearing something?" Inside the dome, Carl Wright was frantically checking his seismic equipment. "We've got massive movement underground," he announced to the gathering crowd. Multiple large objects moving upward through the cave systems. Dr. Chen felt his blood turn cold. "How large?" "Bigger than what we've already seen." "Much bigger." Amy Chen pressed closer to the window, watching her son. Tommy seemed unaware of the danger approaching. He was still talking softly to his new friend, completely trusting in the bond they had formed. The first adult Vorthax emerged from a cave opening 2 miles to the east. Even at that distance, the colonists could see that it was enormous. 20 feet tall and covered in armor that looked like it had survived 1,000 battles. When it roared, windows rattled throughout the colony. The juvenile beside Tommy responded with its own call, but this one sounded different from the aggressive roars they had heard before. It sounded almost like crying. "It's calling for help," Tommy realized. He looked up at the creature's eyes and saw something that surprised him. "You've been trying to call your family this whole time, haven't you?" A second adult emerged from the southern caves, followed quickly by a third from the west. The colonists watched in growing terror as 3 massive Vorthax began moving toward their settlement. These were not confused juveniles. These were full-grown predators, and they looked angry. Lisa Hayes activated the colony's emergency systems. Blast shields began sliding over the windows. Security doors locked into place. Everyone except essential personnel was ordered to the deepest levels of the dome. "We need to get Tommy back inside now," Jake Morrison decided. "Those adults won't be as friendly as the young one." But when they tried to contact Tommy through the external speakers, something unexpected happened. The juvenile Vorthax moved between the boy and the dome, taking a protective stance. It was clear that it would not let anyone separate it from its new friend. "It thinks we're trying to take Tommy away," Dr. Chen realized. "It's protecting him." The 3 adult Vorthax were getting closer. Their massive forms moved across the landscape like living tanks. Every step left deep prints in the rocky ground. Their roars echoed across the valley, making it clear that they viewed the human settlement as a threat to their young. Tommy stood up and placed both hands on the juvenile's armored head. "Hey, it's okay," he said gently. "Those are your family, aren't they? They're looking for you." The young Vorthax made a series of complex sounds, apparently trying to communicate with the approaching adults. Tommy could not understand the meaning, but he could hear the emotions: relief, fear, and something that sounded like an attempt at explanation. The lead adult stopped 50 yards from the dome and roared again. This time the sound was clearly a challenge. It had found its offspring in the company of strange aliens, and it wanted answers. "Tommy," Dr. Chen called through the external speakers. "You need to move slowly toward the dome. Let the family reunite, but don't get caught between them." But Tommy shook his head. "They think you're the bad guys," he called back. "They think you hurt their kid." The juvenile Vorthax was making urgent sounds toward its family, but the adults were not convinced. They began moving into an attack formation, spreading out to surround the human settlement. Tommy looked at the massive creatures closing in, then at the dome where his parents waited in terror. He was the only thing standing between his colony and three of the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. "I have to show them," Tommy said quietly to his alien friend. "I have to show them that we're not enemies." The boy began walking toward the largest adult Vorthak. The juvenile immediately followed, staying close to Tommy's side. It continued making those urgent sounds, and Tommy began to understand that it was trying to explain what had happened. "That's right," Tommy encouraged. "Tell them how we became friends. Tell them that the humans helped you feel better." Inside the dome, Amy Chen was trying to break through the blast shields to reach her son. Lisa Hayes had to physically restrain her to keep her from running outside. Everyone watched through the few remaining cameras as a 7-year-old boy approached certain death. The lead adult Vorthak lowered its massive head toward Tommy. Its claws were extended, its armor plates locked in battle configuration. One swipe could end the boy's life instantly. But Tommy did not run. Instead, he reached into his backpack and pulled out the wooden toy dog his grandfather had made. He held it up toward the adult creature. "This is from my grandpa," Tommy said, clearly. "He taught me that all living things just want to be safe and loved, even big scary ones like you." The adult Vorthak sniffed at the wooden toy. Its multiple eyes studied the small human with intense curiosity. The juvenile moved closer and made more explanatory sounds. Tommy stepped forward and gently placed his hand on the adult's armored snout, just as he had done with the juvenile. "We're not going to hurt your baby," he said softly. "We want to be friends." For a long moment, nothing happened. The other two adults held their positions, waiting to see what their leader would decide. The entire colony held its breath. Then the massive creature did something that defied everything the galaxy thought it knew about Vorthaks. It lowered itself to the ground in the same submissive posture the juvenile had shown. The other adults followed suit. Dr. Chen was monitoring everything through the dome's sensors. "The stress indicators are dropping," he announced in amazement. "All 4 creatures are showing signs of relaxation." Tommy sat down in the dust between the juvenile and its parent. "See," he said to both creatures. "We can all be friends." The adult Vorthak made a sound that was unlike anything in the galactic records. It was almost musical, like singing. The other adults joined in, creating a harmony that seemed to resonate through the ground itself. "What are they doing?" Carl Wright asked. Dr. Chen was studying the readings with growing excitement. "I think they're talking. Real communication, not just territorial calls. Tommy has somehow initiated first contact between our species." Outside, Tommy was listening to the alien music with wonder. He could not understand the words, but he could feel the emotions: gratitude, acceptance, and something that felt like an invitation. The young Vorthak nuzzled Tommy's shoulder and made a series of gentle sounds. Tommy laughed and hugged the creature's massive head. "I think they want to be friends too," he called toward the dome. "Can we let everyone come outside now?" The blast shields of the central dome slowly retracted as Jake Morrison gave the order for controlled contact. 300 colonists watched through the windows as their administrator stepped outside, followed cautiously by Dr. Chen, Amy Chen, and Lisa Hayes. The 4 Vorthaks remained in their relaxed positions around Tommy, but their multiple eyes tracked every movement of the approaching humans. The juvenile made soft, reassuring sounds, apparently explaining to its family that these particular humans were safe. "Easy steps," Tommy called to the adults. "No sudden moves. They're still nervous about strangers." Dr. Chen approached his son, slowly, his medical scanner in hand. The readings he was getting defied everything he knew about Vorthak biology. The creature's stress hormones were at baseline levels. Their defensive systems were completely inactive. They were treating the humans like members of their own pack. "Tommy," Amy Chen whispered as she knelt beside her son. "What did you do?" "I just talked to them, Mom. Like Grandpa taught me to talk to scared animals." Tommy reached up to pat the juvenile's armored snout. "They were lost and afraid. Their baby got separated during the earthquake, and they've been looking for him ever since." Lisa Hayes kept her weapons lowered but ready. Years of military training made it hard to trust creatures that could destroy starships with their bare claws. But the evidence was right in front of her. The Vorthax were behaving like protective parents, not mindless killers. The largest adult made a series of complex sounds toward Jake Morrison. The administrator looked helplessly at Tommy. "What is it saying?" Tommy listened carefully, tilting, his head like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "I think it wants to know if we're going to try to hurt its family. It's asking if this place is safe." Jake thought carefully before responding. The wrong words could restart the conflict that had nearly destroyed them all. "Tell it that this place can be safe for everyone. Humans and Vorthax together." Tommy translated as best he could, using simple words and gestures. The adult creatures responded with what sounded like questions. Soon, Tommy was acting as translator for the first diplomatic conversation between the two species. Carl Wright was recording everything from his position near the dome. This footage would change how the galaxy viewed both humans and Vorthax. For the first time, these feared predators were showing their true nature: intelligent, family-oriented beings who had been misunderstood for centuries. As the day progressed, more colonists ventured outside. The Vorthax showed curiosity about human technology, but they were careful not to damage anything. They seemed particularly interested in the colony's agricultural areas, examining the growing plants with gentle touches of their massive claws. Dr. Chen made a remarkable discovery during his medical scans. The adult Vorthax were not just protecting their young, they were teaching it. The complex sounds they made contained layers of information about survival, social interaction, and environmental adaptation. "They have a sophisticated language," he explained to Jake. "Tommy isn't just playing with them. He's learning to communicate with an entirely new form of intelligence." The juvenile Vorthax had become Tommy's constant companion. When the boy went to lunch, the creature waited patiently outside the dome. When Tommy played with the other children, the young alien watched with what could only be described as amusement. Lisa Hayes found herself assigned to a job she never expected: security liaison for interspecies relations. The adult Vorthax had established a perimeter around the colony, not as a threat but as protection. When her sensors detected movement in the distant hills, it was the Vorthax who investigated and chased away the small predators that might have threatened the human settlement. 3 weeks after first contact, the colony had transformed into something unprecedented in galactic history. Humans and Vorthax worked together, each species contributing their unique abilities to the community's survival. The Vorthax natural tunneling abilities helped expand the colony's underground storage areas. Their keen senses provided early warning of weather changes and geological instability. In return, human medical knowledge helped treat old injuries the creatures had suffered, and human agriculture provided new food sources that supplemented their traditional diet. Tommy had become the colony's official human Vorthax cultural ambassador, a title that made him giggle but which he took seriously. Other children in the colony started learning basic Vorthax communication, and soon there was a whole generation of young humans who saw the massive creatures as friends rather than monsters. The breakthrough came when the Galactic Council sent a research team to investigate reports of peaceful human-Vorthax coexistence. The team's xenobiologist, Dr. Maria Santos, spent days studying the interaction between Tommy and his alien friend. "This changes everything we thought we knew," she reported back to the council. "Vorthax aren't mindless killing machines. They're highly social creatures with complex emotional lives. Previous encounters failed because we approached them as enemies instead of potential allies." Word of New Haven's success spread throughout human space. Other colonies began requesting Vorthax families to help with their own settlements. The creatures' natural abilities made them ideal partners for deep space colonization, while human technology and medical knowledge provided benefits the Vorthax had never imagined. Tommy grew older, but he never lost his special connection with the Vorthax. At age 10, he was translating complex technical discussions between human engineers and Vorthax construction specialists. At 12, he was helping to establish the first human Vorthax joint colonies on 3 different worlds. By the time Tommy turned 15, the galaxy was a different place. The fierce reputation of the Vorthax had been replaced by respect for their intelligence and appreciation for their loyalty. Humans were no longer seen as just another species of tool users, but as beings with a unique gift for understanding others. The wooden toy dog that Tommy's grandfather had carved still sat on his desk, now in the office of the Interspecies Communication Institute that had grown around New Haven Colony. It served as a reminder that sometimes the most powerful weapon against fear and misunderstanding was simply the courage to say down to a monster and really mean, I understand. On quiet evenings, Tommy would sit with his old friend, now a fully grown Vorthak with young of its own, and tell stories about Earth. The alien would listen with the same patience it had shown that first day, when a scared little boy decided that monsters were just people who needed a friend. The galaxy had learned an important lesson from New Haven. The universe was full of potential allies, waiting for someone brave enough to offer friendship instead of fear. And sometimes it took a child to show the adults how easy it could be to turn enemies into family.